I'll never forgive the Leafs for ruining HBO's 24/7 series. Apparently, they were just such a pain in the ass to deal with that HBO just went, you know what? That's enough. We're good. We're good. The editors at the Toronto Maple Leafs wouldn't stop, wouldn't relent. Our next guest had still one of my favorite quotes ever from that series. He's the head coach of the Coachella Valley Firebirds, Stanley Cup Champion, Jack Adams winner, Stan Bylsma. How's it going, man?
I'm great. I'm curious as to what the quote is.
You know what the quote is. It's such a good quote. I'm sure people have said it to you a million times. Can you guess?
I'm not sure.
It's the scar. It's where you were like, I was a hockey player. It's like, damn, that's a cool ass thing to say. It's like, I like my scars. Shows I was a hockey player. I remember watching that, getting chills, going, that's how you become a head coach in the league. Is you say that to guys, then all of a sudden they're trying to block shots with their face, going, I got to get one of those. Like, my only scar from hockey is my friend Shane closed my pinky finger in the van door one time after practice. That's the only one I ever got. It hurt, though. It hurt like a son of a bitch, man. I'm telling you, it was bad.
Yeah, that's actually a common minor hockey injury.
Yeah, van door.
Middle finger in the car door.
Yeah. I'll never forget, too, he didn't want to open the door because he was afraid my finger was going to fall off. And I was like, please open the door, because it was my left hand. Like, I couldn't get across. I was just there stunned, only pinky finger in the door, no rest of hand. Not a good one. My finger was definitely hanging. Not as cool of a hockey scar as yours. So you're with the Kraken affiliate right now. You're first in the Pacific Division. Your team's red hot, so congratulations on that. But seriously, how do you keep guys focused when you're in Palm Springs and it's most known for golf courses and you're coaching hockey players?
It's actually, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
I think
a lot of golf trips,
really
a lot of team bonding on the course.
Yeah, clearly right now Coachella is an ideal destination for the American Hockey League. Mm-hmm. As we speak right now, I'm walking out 65-degree morning weather, and the mountains are out behind, the palm trees, and a golf course is within eyesight right now. So it's a great place to come and play hockey.
Mm-hmm. It's minus 13 in Toronto today. It's windy. It's dark. It's not as good. It's really, Palm Springs, that's nice. That's probably feels pretty good being there. I could be down for a quick trip. You are really in this interesting position. It's very like, I don't want to say Ted Lasso-ish, but there's something very cool about getting to be the head coach of an expansion team in a non-traditional market. Like, this thing comes together. You become the head coach. I'm curious how it's been different from your other experiences, given that, this thing got started from scratch.
Yeah, totally from scratch. Expansion team, new team, new area, new building, new fans. We had no idea really the success we would have with the community and the fans, and obviously in a non-traditional market.
Mm-hmm.
So it was ground up. It was a new beginning in a lot of ways for the players, also for myself, and it's been awesome to you don't necessarily put together a team. It's Ron Francis, the Kraken, and Jason Bottrell. Expansion draft was a part of it a couple years ago, but we're a new organization, and so we don't have many drafts to have. So we were kind of like an expansion team. We were free agents, and again, players from the expansion draft were coming to our organization. But it was a completely new experience, and it was a great one to build from the ground up, and what we've created here in Coachella Valley with the weather, the fans, the community, the building. It's a special place, and then in turn we've had a special team the last year and a half, winning a lot of hockey games.
Well, it's cool because, getting to build a new team, you get to try to do things differently, right? You get to try and impose the changes that you would maybe want to see, and try to leave certain stuff behind. But I would imagine still, though, as a head coach, when you're just focused on winning in your group and, you've got player development, that's a huge part of what you've got to do at the AHL level. Does all the other stuff that has surrounded being a team that starts from scratch make your job harder? Like, how has it been from a practical standpoint for you?
Yeah, there's definitely, the whole organization was new and new to hockey in a lot of ways. We, from a building of the team to travel to training camp to it was new for everyone. We're bringing people to the hockey for the first time. So there wasn't an infrastructure built into the team. There wasn't how to do things. There wasn't, this is what we've done in the past. This is how the Firebirds have done it, and this is how we're doing it. It was you start from literally square one with everything and everyone. And there was, last year in particular, we started without a building being finished until December 18. We played 22 games away from Coachella Valley.
Ooh.
Started in Seattle for a month and a half and played a few home games up in Seattle, but we had 22 games away from the Valley to start the season. So there was a lot to ask of the players. It was a lot to ask of the group, and we definitely had some growing pains. But I think they were positives for the team, and they were positives for the organization.
Well, it's also cool too. There's something about being a hockey person and a hockey fan, especially in a market like that, where when you bring someone into the game and they have that initial excitement for it of discovering it, where you really like hockey is very different from the other sports in that way, where it's like you get excited seeing someone else learn about the game or come to the game in a different way from the other sports. And like that's always felt like a bit of a Canadian thing where we really nationalize our sport. We always really want whenever America gives us a little bit of attention. But I'm sure, too, as an American who's been in it his entire life, there's that added feeling of it, too, like, hey, this is an awesome sport. You should be watching this sport. This isn't a niche sport. And you get excited when you're in a market like that, too, or there's some kind of reinvigoration for you seeing, people experience this for the first time. Like, is that the same way, or is that more of a Canadian thing?
No, it was a really quite unique over the course of all of last year, and we're seeing the benefits of it this year in our fans. But we stepped off the plane in December 18 to come to Coachella Valley, and we didn't quite know what we were going to get in terms of our fans in the community. And we, as you mentioned about the population in Palm Springs, in the area.
It's older.
We had there is an older population, and there's snowbirds, and we thought we might get a group of fans that were snowbirds and Canadians, and we have a lot of people from Seattle that come down here in the winter, and so that's what we saw at first. We saw a building with snowbirds. We saw a lot of plates from Alberta, Manitoba, British Columbia. We saw a lot of those car license plates in the parking lot. And as the season went on, you saw more and more people from the community, from Southern California. You saw Ducks jerseys and Kings jerseys. You saw Shark jerseys. And at the end of the season, we go into playoffs, and as you know, the 180 days is up, and we were losing a lot of the fans that we had during the season, but they were being replaced by people from the area that were coming to hockey maybe for the first time, or had been distant fans of the teams in the area, teams in California, but didn't have a hockey team of their own. And by the end of the playoffs, the building was filled with young, old, new fans, and it was a completely different atmosphere, almost a Vegas type atmosphere to the building, and it was great to see just a whole different realm of fans coming to our games, and the atmosphere of our games is pretty special. It's not maybe a traditional hockey atmosphere. It's more got a soccer feel to, not quite as great as soccer fans are, but a little bit more like a soccer feel to the energy of the fans.
That's great. And, we established that you're a hockey lifer. Like, you've been around the game as a player, a coach, and Yeah, God, long time that you've been doing this, and yeah, but we spend a lot of time right now talking about, hey, the state of the game and where it's going and why it's happening this way. And I've had guests on talking about, professionalization of youth sports and the way that's impacted a sport like hockey that for a long time had a passion quotient that I think was a little bit bigger than maybe it is right now. But you're now with an AHL team where it's a younger group, right? And I know you've got some older players. I know you've got some vets on that team, like, for some people, former Leaf Connor Carrick's with your team. But coaching younger players, are you noticing like a significant difference in terms of the way young guys need to be coached? Do we overstate that as outsiders right now? Like, has the game from a coaching standpoint changed as dramatically as we in the media and some outsiders make it seem from time to time? Like, what has been your experience with that?
It's a good question, and I think that I don't see the players entering the game now, or the younger generation being the things that have changed. I feel like the things that have changed is the coaching. If we're talking about going back 10 years and going back 20 years, I think I think it's probably us, the coaches, that have needed to change and that have changed and that are coaching differently than 20 years ago. There's, I don't know, maybe that's because it needed to change, or maybe that does mean the generation has changed and that these players need to be coached differently. But I don't see the coaching that I got. Maybe let's just go all the way back to when I started and talking in the 90s. I don't see that type of coaching, or the type of coaching that I got work very well.
Okay.
I think we have changed, and I think that's a good thing. I think I love coaching in the American Hockey League. These players have a place to go. They have a clear goal in mind. We're developing them. They want to get to the NHL, and they want to get better, and they want to have the answers. And I think as a coach, you have to provide it for them, and not just open the gate, not just blow the whistle for practices. You got to provide them with the answer, because they have a high motivation level to get to where they want to go, which is the National Hockey League.
Yeah, the way it seems to be going, like, obviously there's some things that did need to change, and that's happened in all of sports. But usually there's like a period of overcorrection, and I wonder if we are in a little bit of that time period now, especially when you're maybe not as heavily as the AHL level for you right now. Like, I'm sure that you're comparing and contrasting, or that you have, at least in certain points, because, yeah, you do hold a lot more power in terms of sway of who is going to get a call up to hit their ultimate dream, their ultimate point of destination. But that, yeah, it's gone from more of the power dynamic of a coach has certainly shifted. Like, outside of the just, ability to, I'm trying to think of a word outside of, the way I want to say it with a player. But I think everybody can kind of get the gist of what I'm trying to drive at here. But that maybe it's more of trying to figure out, like, connecting with the players in a different way, but establishing that authority. Like you just said it, of, giving them the answers, giving them the tools. That maybe the power dynamic has shifted more from like player coach to partnership between the coach and the players.
That may be a good way to look at it. I just looking back in my career, I learned there's some skills, and there's some things that I learned at 26 and 27 and 29 years old that I was well into my professional career, and made the NHL at 26 and 27, and I'm learning things about the game, about skating, about the game that I had never been taught, I've never been told. And I've had a lot of coaches in the path of professional hockey, but there's lots of things that I had to figure out on my own. I didn't get those from my coach. I had to do it through, trial and error, and I had to do it, butt my head up against the wall, so to speak. And I think as a coach, I view it my role to whether it's be a partner, but I'm their help to get to where they want to go. I'm their help to get to be the kind of player they want to be.
Mm. Yeah. It sounds like it's harder to coach now. Just it sounds like it's way harder to coach now. Like that answer, I'm going, God, this is hard. This is really, really hard. What he's got to do. Okay, so the original reason that I wanted to have you on was because the Olympics were coming back to hockey, and I was trying to think about like who would be cool to chat with about those times, and then I was looking at what you're doing right now, and I'm like, I got to talk to him about a bunch of these things because this is pretty fascinating itself. But it's sad because you were the last head coach of the U.S. men's hockey team, and it's been a decade since we've had best on best hockey at the Olympics. And I'm sorry, with all due respect to the tournament that we tried to throw here in Toronto with the under 21 team or the young gun team and the Team Europe mismatch. It wasn't it. It wasn't it. And everybody knew it in the city right away. It didn't pass the smell test, and that's why people weren't going. And it wasn't really a celebrated event that had a long life cycle. But yeah, it's going to be 2026. So 12 years, 2 missed cycles is what we're going to end up having. What did you think of when you first heard that it was returning? Like, what is it going to mean to U.S. hockey, especially, that has been chomping at the bit to show how much they've closed the gap between, teams from the past and the Canadian teams of now?
Yeah, I think for hockey, I think it would be tough to find someone who said the Stanley Cup wasn't the biggest prize,
of course,
in our sport. But I think a gold medal in the Olympics is equally as it's right there with that answer of the Stanley Cup being the greatest. A gold medal in the Olympics is a special thing. It's a special tournament, and it's I think everybody wants to see that, or it's not always been able to do it, but everybody wants to see that best on best, represent your country. Olympics gold medal is as special as winning the Stanley Cup. So to hear that we were going to be able to have it return to our nations, and you're going to be able to represent your country in the Olympics, and the chance to win a gold medal is it's one of the greatest things. It's one of the greatest stories in our sports that, at least this for us in the U.S. 1980 in the U.S. Winning the gold medal in Lake Placid. So it's super pumped to be able to have the Olympics back and to have it be best on best. And it creates a great story, and it creates some great anticipation for what we're going to see with the best players in the world competing for a gold medal.
Well, it's especially interesting here because, for the last, these last 2 cycles, USA Hockey has gained on Canada in a very noticeable way. Like, you're seeing it pretty much every year at the juniors. You're seeing it every year at the draft. You're especially seeing it because now we're back to creating fake rosters of who we think is going to be on each team. And you look at the American side, and you're like, whoa, that's way better than it used to be. That's actually pretty terrifying considering the way that things used to go. And I think back to Sochi, the thing about that was Canada was just, to me anyways, I don't know, you probably feel about it differently being the coach of the Americans, but the gap between Canada and the rest of the countries, I don't think has ever been that stark. Like the blue line Canada had, I still think is the best that'll ever be assembled. The dominance they had in that tournament was incredible. Again, you guys had a talented team, but How has USA Hockey taken such a step forward over the course of the last decade, where we've gone from, hey, this is not a conversation, to, oh my God, they might win?
That's exciting for me.
Yeah, it's not for me. I hate it. I don't even like hearing you laugh like that. Like, this is over. This interview is over. No, but seriously, how has this happened?
Well, I think, it's still the challenge for Canada. It's like I feel like we were talking about it with the guys in the room a couple weeks ago, and like, it would be a challenge to put together a third team for Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Canada's still
Deeper.
probably deeper, and you go, to put a team together for Canada is extremely difficult. You're going to be leaving off some really, not some really good hockey players, some great hockey players. And you could have a second team, and you could have a third team with the roster that Canada has. But I think, now, maybe in the past, maybe 2014, we had a lot of tough choices, and we left some really, really good hockey players off. But now you could start to think about putting a second and a third team together for the U.S., and you still have good hockey players to round out. And so I think the quality of the player and the depth of the player, you look at down the middle and you're like, whoa, that's pretty good. And that's not pretty good. That might be, equally as good as staring across at McDavid. And so you have the depth and the quality, and there's going to be a lot of tough choices. There's going to be great players that don't make the U.S. team. And it's, right down the lineup for the defensemen and the goaltending. And so you're looking at just awesome. And the depth of the pool is a lot deeper now. And it's amazing to see where, over the course of the last 10 years, the program, in Ann Arbor and the World Juniors, the depth of USA Hockey continues to get deeper and deeper, and that just means you guys have a bigger pool of quality of players at the top.
Yeah, as a Canadian hockey fan, I hate it, and it really does. It is scary. I want it. I really hope Canada in 2026 beats the brakes off you guys, and that we can sort of put this to bed for a little while. But as of right now, I will say that this is by far the closest that it's ever looked in terms of a top end talent between the two teams and going roster for roster. Like, and actually, the year you coached, it was famous for the TJ Sochi thing. If people remember that, it was like, she just nonstop in the like taking advantage of the rules of being able to shoot the shootout like over and over and over again and being nasty. But people, I think, will very easily forget that Phil Kessel was the leading points getter at that tournament. He's in Vancouver right now trying to attempt a comeback bid. And listen, this would be a failure of me if I didn't try to ask someone who coached Phil Kessel at a tournament he was having a lot of success at, if they had a good Phil Kessel story from the time coaching him.
Well, I don't have a great one. I was super excited, curious to coach Phil. Phil's got a lot of notoriety, and there are a bunch of stories about Phil. But I actually was amazed at just the quality of player that he is, the speed that he has, and the puck skills and his shot coming off the wing. And he was enlightening to see in person. He was a extremely good hockey player, and he has it he's just got a quiet, little bit smug way about himself, with maybe a voice that you turn your head at and look at it.
I was going to say, are you not going to do the voice? Because everybody does the voice whenever they tell a story.
No, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
It's It's head turning though. It is head turning.
Yeah, I love everybody does the voice. Like whenever there's a story, people can't resist actually doing it, and it's my favorite because almost everybody's spot on. Like somehow it's an easy voice to do. But yeah, it's just I think that there's something about him that's very much like how baseball players or let's just not even say baseball players. A lot of athletes used to like smoke cigarettes, right? And we were like, oh my god, that's so crazy that so many guys who smoke cigarettes. And I think with Phil, one of our fascinations beyond the voice is that it's the confidence of a guy like that, like where he'll step up to Ryan Reeves and be like, yeah, I can beat you in basketball, no problem. And he steps up, he's terrible at it. And watching the videos that he's got this insane amount of confidence that he is a great athlete, like across all sports. Apparently, like, you put him in a ping pong tournament, he's incredible, golf, all these different things. But yeah, the confidence, but also that it's like a throwback diet of someone who will be like, there's a story here of he was basically telling the Leafs, like, if you take away the soda machines, he's not going to play hockey. It's just, there's not too many guys like that anymore that are drinking as many like sodas as a guy like Phil Kessel.
Yeah. A Snickers and a soda between periods. Yeah. I was told about it and I was looking for it.
But you got to let it happen when he's leading your team in scoring, and you go like, yeah, I guess get him another Snickers, get it in here, hurry up, hustle up.
Yeah, the European tournaments usually provide you with a unique display of the candy or the chocolate or the flair of the nation you're in. So it wasn't Snickers and it was soda, but it wasn't Snickers, but it might have been Nutella and some other form of chocolate in between periods, but it was there. Yeah, so that's Phil.
So I got two more guys I want to talk to you about that you coached. One is the guy that's playing here right now, who's been struggling to produce and who had two of his best seasons with you when you were in Detroit as an assistant. Tyler Bertuzzi, he finally scored the other night, and I think he had gone something stupid like 18 games without a goal. It had just been an annoyance for him because he does a lot of things well, but he just wasn't finishing around the net. But again, you were there the two seasons that he broke out, and he scored 20 in both. I'm curious what you thought was the best way to get the best out of Tyler Bertuzzi.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we talked about coaching and screaming and yelling and putting him out the door is probably not the best way for Tyler, but he's also one who he needs to feel good to play good, and he's emotional player, as in when you feel good. You feel good about yourself. You feel good about your game. You play your best, and he's a competitor, and his strengths are his competitiveness and his nature, and he's a bit of a. It's not the prettiest game. Mm-hmm. It's scrappy. It's scrappy, and it's battling, and he's got to feel good about him. He's got to feel good about his game, and you're going to get a high compete level. May not be the prettiest game in the planet, but his skills don't jump off the table at you as if you're putting together the perfect hockey player and you're looking for the best skating and the best feet and the best hands and the best shot and the best vision. You might not mention Tyler Bertuzzi's name in putting together that, but it's scrappy and competitive and dirty, and when he's feeling good about that, he's playing good, and to be honest, the Leafs are not the team that I watch the most of in the National Hockey League, but I would like Tyler to feel a little bit better about himself and feel good about his game to see what he's adding, because the few games that I watch, he hasn't scored, but he's a competitive, scrappy, get it dirty, get it ugly, get in front of the net, play in the corners, and just get the job done, and that's when he's at his best, and I think that would be something the Leafs would really want to have in their lineup.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, it's funny because in the way that you're speaking about him, you got to wonder if maybe after breaking a slump like that, and because a lot of the stuff you're saying he's been providing this year, and it's why even in a market that's as critical as this one, he hasn't been criticized as much as a player who would get a big financial ticket, even though it is just a 1-year deal. Like there was a lot of promise, especially coming off of the playoffs that he had. But people do recognize, like, he is in those dirty areas, that he is a scrappy player, that he is a really underrated playmaker. It's just the puck has not gone in for him to the point where people have wondered, and myself included, like, if he's cursed, if there's a curse, because he's bouncing pucks off of, wide open cages off the post, like, and you could kind of see the frustration start to carry in his game. And now that he's been able to get one and he's kind of break this scoring streak, with what you're saying about the confidence of the player, that maybe this is going to start to unlock a little bit of just now you can kind of get back on a roll when, you've been in a slump for a very long time. Finally see one goes in. It can just loosen things up for a guy like that a lot.
He hasn't had a ton of chance to be able to do it in his career up to this point, but I do feel he's a playoff type player. He wants the opportunity to be able to do it in the playoffs. When he gets it, I think he's going to have a chance to be an impact player at the important times for the Leafs.
Mm-hmm. Last one, and then I'll let you go. You've been super gracious with the time. Obviously, you're Sid's former coach, and Penguins at risk of missing the playoffs again. There's 1 year left on the deal, and Sidney Crosby is still one of the best players on the planet at age 36. Could you ever see him parting ways with the organization and try to pursue winning somewhere else?
The answer to that question is we saw Wayne Gretzky move from Edmonton, and so the answer is it can happen. But I don't. I think it's hard for anyone to think that it's possible.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it too.
It can happen, for sure. It happened to Wayne Gretzky, but I have a hard time picturing anything but a Penguins jersey on Sidney Crosby. Maybe Team Canada. That one goes on them pretty good too. Yeah. But
we like that one.
You like that one.
Yeah.
But I have a hard time picturing a different jersey on Sidney Crosby Yes, the Penguins, are in the fight right now to make the playoffs with probably 20, 30, 28 games left. Mm-hmm. But he's still playing at such a high level. He's still one of the best players in the game still, and I just see that. I just in my heart feel that keeps going with the Penguins.
Oh, me too. I'd love to see him get another chance to win somewhere. It's weird always seeing those images. Like, nobody likes the pictures of other superstar players, like the greats in the wrong sweater. But it would be a real shame if the rest of Sidney Crosby's career ended up just being, trying to scratch and claw your way to the playoffs and then not really having a true path there. Dan Bylsma, again, congrats on all the success this season, man. Thank you so much for making time for us today. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hey, take care.
Appreciate the time.